Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And Paranormal Expeditions.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by the upcoming 500th episode of Ron's Amazing Stories. This landmark episode will star Sylvia Shults and a surprise guest. It's going to be amazing, which is good because that's what you've come to expect on Ron's Amazing Stories.
An anniversary party is going on at the Brown household around the corner. One of the guests, George Taylor, pauses while eating his dessert to say,
Best lemon chiffon pie I've ever tasted, Mary.
Oh, really?
I wish my wife could do as well.
Oh, thank you.
Say, it doesn't look as if Sam is appreciating it much, though.
Goodness, is my cooking that bad? Sam, your head's practically in your plate. I guess he's fallen asleep every night. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Sam, sit up. Oh, it's dreadful. I'd better shake him. Sam!
Great guns, he's dead. How do you do? I'm Sergeant Barker, the Homicide Division.
Oh.
He's one of my boys, Mike Grady. Where's the body?
In the dining room at the table. We didn't move him.
Mm-hmm. Now, might as well be comfortable, everybody. This'll take just a little while. Dead, all right. Peaceful, too. Who's Mrs. Sam Brown?
I am.
And do you mind telling me what happened?
I guess not. I'm so shocked I don't know where to begin or what to tell you.
Well, you might as well begin by telling me what you served for dinner.
Well, we had soup first.
Soup? What kind?
Mushroom, then roast chicken, green peas, mashed potatoes, dessert, and coffee. But I don't see how this could mean anything.
Just routine, Mrs. Brown. Did Mr. Brown eat everything?
Yes, he did. He seemed to fall asleep over his coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tried to wake him, I found he'd had a heart attack.
Yeah. That'll be all for a few minutes, Mrs. Brown. We want to take a look around. Notice anything about this table, Mike?
No, Chief, I can't say as I do.
Yeah, neither do I. Let's look in this kitchen here. Orderly person, isn't she? Stacked the dishes after each course.
Yes, and here's the silverware over here. Look, Chief. One of these soup spoons has turned black.
Black? Let me see it. The only spoon that's tarnished, too. Well, I was beginning to think it was a heart attack or a perfect murder, but this silver soup spoon is evidence enough. Mrs. Brown?
Yes, Sergeant Barker?
I'm sorry to interrupt your little party, Mrs. Brown, but I'm sure your guests won't mind.
I don't understand.
You will, Mrs. Brown, you will. You see, you're under arrest for the murder of your husband.
Do you know why Sergeant Barker accused Mrs. Brown of murder? In a moment, we'll hear the solution. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Wow, that twist on the classic death at a dinner party scenario was interesting.
Quite. I found it refreshing.
How so?
Well, Ron, normally these dinner murders happen behind closed doors and we are left with many clues to run down to solve the murder.
There were a lack of clues.
Right, but we have the one we need.
Which was?
What blackened the spoon, my dear Ronald?
Oh, I see your point.
Sometimes I impress myself.
I'll bet that doesn't take very much.
And now, back to our story.
Sergeant Barker, how do you know it was homicide?
Well, Mrs. Brown took careful pains to wash the soup pans and soup dishes before she served the rest of the meal.
Yes, I can see that.
But she forgot one thing, to wash the silver soup spoons. What she didn't realize was that an hour later, by the end of dinner, the spoon her husband had used to eat his toadstool soup would give her away. She didn't know that toadstools make silver turn black. Mrs. Brown almost committed the perfect murder, but she forgot to wash one spoon.
Well, you were right about the spoon.
Elementary.
I'm sure it was.
But I wonder if it is true.
Well, I did a bit of research, and in fact, it is a myth. Some poison mushrooms will turn a spoon black, but others don't. So you have to know your shrooms.
I am not surprised you knew that.
I don't like your tone.
And so you should.
What's that you said?
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to get to some of the groundwork for the 500th episode of Ron's Amazing Stories. But don't fret or worry, we do have some stories. We have two from you guys. The first is a freaky ghost story that just makes no sense. And then we have a response tale to a skinwalker adventure that we had a few weeks back. We have two mind-bending stories from the pages of the 50s pulp magazines that were both written by the talented Fredrick Brown. And as an added bonus, Sylvia takes us on her latest ghost hunting trip, which should be pretty good. Well, as amazing as it sounds, we are coming up on the 500th episode of Ron's Amazing Stories. And as we do with these landmark shows, we're going to do something really special. Well, rather than just tell you about what's going to be happening in the 500th episode, I felt it necessary to bring Sylvia in herself so she can tell us more and we can talk about it more. And of course, I can rant and rave how talented a storyteller I am. Sylvia, are you there?
I am here, Ron.
Now, you do admit that I am, of course, the better storyteller. I think you've told the world that, haven't you?
Oh, did I mention that? I'm not sure that I did. I don't recall. Did I really say you were the better storyteller?
Well, okay. In the last time when we did the throwdown, I clearly won.
Oh, I seem to remember it being a tie.
Selective memory. Yeah, I've heard of this.
Yeah. You could just knuckle under and say that I won. I mean, we could make it easy.
Well, no, there's no reason to make it easy. See, I was there, and I know that I won. There was no doubt. I gave you a tie because I felt you needed it, for your
is
psyche.
That what happened?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
You're such a fragile person. Everybody that listens to you must know that.
Yeah, because a fragile person stays the night in the Villisca axe murder house. Okay.
Yeah, they do. I've read that somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh,
I think it's called the Axe Murderer Complex, in fact. Famous psychosis.
Well, the fact remains that I believe that I am the better storyteller.
Yeah, I wish that were true, because it is hard work being such an amazing storyteller. It is hard, gall-darn work.
It's grueling.
All right, well, folks, what you heard was a little prequel of what you're going to get during our next throwdown on episode 500 of Ron's Amazing Stories.
Yay for smack talk.
But we do have one problem. We did receive a lot of emails and questions, and they felt that the judging process may have been a little, on the jinky side.
Oh, what shall we do about that?
Well, I have a simple solution. We will have a live judge there.
Oh, no ghosts in the corner of the room?
No ghosts in the corner, nothing like that. We are going to have an actual person there that will give a thumbs up and thumbs down, and we're going to have different rules.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
What are the rules going to be?
Well, last time we each did a story, and the story could be true or it might not be true, and we had to judge that.
Yeah, I remember.
Well, we're going to do that again, except this time you don't have to have one fake story. They could all be real or they could all be fake.
Oh, well, that raises the stakes.
Yeah, but knowing you, you're going to do all real ones. That's just who
you
you
don't
are.
know that? You don't
I
know
do know that because you have a tell when you lie.
Oh, do I now?
You do. You have a tell. And so I know that because of that, now that I've told you this, you're going to come back with 4 real stories, whereas I'm going to come up with 4 fantastic fake ones that are going to totally blow your socks off.
Well, we will leave that up to the judge to decide.
Yeah, that's kind of why I thought we better have a real person there deciding our fate.
Well, that sounds fair. Even though they know that I'm clearly the better storyteller.
All right, well then, how about you pick the judge then?
I can find us a judge.
All right, and they'll be fair and impartial?
Probably.
Well, anyway, folks, that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to do another ghost story throwdown. This time, the stories may or may not be real. It'll be teller's choice. And I won't guarantee that all my stories will be fake, but I won't guarantee that they'll all be real. And I guess you're going to do the same.
I will do my best.
All right, Sylvia. Well, I'm looking forward to that. So the date for the 500th episode is July 22nd. And so please tune in. Tell your friends to be there. Tell your friends to tell their friends to be there. It is going to be a heck of a show.
Bring the popcorn.
And bring the popcorn. And of course, it will be the 500th episode of Ron's Amazing Stories. How about that?
That's amazing.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to? Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, narrated by Ray Porter. A lone astronaut must save the Earth from disaster in this incredible new science-based thriller from #1 New York's best-selling author of The Martian. Now, I'm going to bring Sylvia back in here because, Sylvia, you have personal experience with Andy Weir yourself. You are a fan of his book, The Martian.
I am. I read omnivorously and voraciously, but I don't really tend to read science fiction. But the premise of The Martian was just so astounding that I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And it just sucked me in, and it was so interesting. I really enjoyed the way that the book was sciencey enough to make me feel smart while I was reading it, but not too much technical detail so that I felt dumb while I was reading it.
Yeah.
It was really, really well written, and I hugely enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to reading Project Hail Mary, too.
Well, a lone astronaut must save the Earth from disaster. That is right up his alley. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be honest right here and now. I have not listened to this book yet, but I am spending a credit on this guy. So in just a minute, I'm going to play a clip from the book. So we'll have that. What I loved about The Martian was each failure led to another failure, which led to another failure, which led to another failure, which he had to solve all these in order to fix the original problem and get back on track.
Yes.
And it was just so amazing to read these. I call them journal entries.
Yeah.
And that's just how the book is. And I'm hoping that Project Hail Mary is the same way. What do you say we listen to the clip?
Sure, that sounds good.
All right.
I have a confession to make my own self. I work at a library, as you know, and I was the one who put the cover on the library's copy of Project Hail Mary. So I snuck a little bit of time and I read the first few pages of the book as I was supposed to be working. But it was really, I didn't want to put it down. I was at work, so I had to. But yeah, you're just not sure what's going on. The main character's not sure what's going on, and he starts to get a little sense of it. And then, oh, well, no, we gotta wait to find out. So.
Okay, let's play a clip from the book. The main character, Raylan Grace, has just awoken aboard his spaceship. He doesn't know it yet, but all of his crewmates are dead. His memory is gone, and there is an irritating computer voice talking to him.
What's 2 plus 2? Something about the question irritates me. I'm tired. I drift back to sleep. A few minutes pass, then I hear it again. What's 2 plus 2? The soft, feminine voice lacks emotion, and the pronunciation is identical to the previous time she said it. It's a computer. A computer is hassling me. I'm even more irritated now. I say. I'm surprised. I meant to say, leave me alone. A completely reasonable response, in my opinion, but I failed to speak. Incorrect, says the computer. What's 2 plus 2? Time for an experiment. I'll try to say hello. I say. Incorrect. What's 2 plus 2? What's going on? I want to find out, but I don't have much to work with. I can't see. I can't hear anything other than the computer. I can't even feel. No, that's not true. I feel something. I'm lying down. I'm on something soft. A bed. I think my eyes are closed. That's not so bad. All I have to do is open them. I try, but nothing happens. Why can't I open my eyes? Open. And open. Open, dang it. Ooh, I felt a wiggle that time. My eyelids moved. I felt it. Open. My eyelids creep up and blinding light sears my retinas. I say. I keep my eyes open with sheer force of will. Everything is white with shades of pain. Eye movement detected, my tormentor says. What's 2 plus 2? The whiteness lessens. My eyes are adjusting. I start to see shapes, but nothing sensible yet. Let's see. Can I move my hands? No. Feet? Also no. But I can move my mouth, right? I've been saying stuff. Not stuff that makes sense, but it's something. Incorrect. What's 2 plus 2? The shapes start to make sense. I'm in a bed. It's kind of oval-shaped. LED lights shine down on me. Cameras in the ceiling watch my every move. Creepy though that is, I'm much more concerned about the robot arms. The 2 brushed steel armatures hang from the ceiling. Each has an assortment of disturbingly penetration-looking tools where hands should be. Can't say I like the look of that. Oh, I say. Will that do? Incorrect. What's 2 plus 2? Dang it. I summon all my willpower and inner strength. Also, I'm starting to panic a little. Good. I use that too. 4, I finally say. Correct. Thank God. I can talk. Sort of. I breathe a sigh of relief. Wait. I just controlled my breathing. I take another breath. On purpose. My mouth is sore. My throat is sore, but it's my soreness. I have control. I'm wearing a breathing mask. It's tight to my face and connected to a hose that goes behind my head. Can I get up? No, but I can move my head a little. I look down at my body. I'm naked and connected to more tubes than I can count. There's one in each arm, one in each leg, one in my gentleman's equipment, and two that disappear under my thigh. I'm guessing one of them is up where the sun doesn't shine. That can't be good. Also, I'm covered with electrodes. The sensor-type stickers, like for an EKG, but they're all over the place. Well, at least they're only on my skin instead of jammed into me. Oh, I wheeze. I try again. Where am I?
All right, Sylvia, what's your reaction to that clip? For me, I'm getting chills because it does sound just like The Martian. It sounds fantastic. A computer hassling you, I love it.
That is what sucked me in, and I did not want to put the book down at that point, and it's going to be the same way with the audiobook. It's just, you can't wait to find out what happens next, and why is the computer hassling him?
Well, I guess we'll find out, huh?
Yeah.
We'll all find out together. I do know this. The main character's name is Raylan Grace, and he realizes that he has an impossible task that now confronts him. Alone in this tiny ship that has been coupled together by every government space agency on the planet and hurled into the depths of space, it's up to him to conquer an extinction-level event to our species. No pressure there, right?
Terrifying.
All right, well, this book is part scientific mystery, part dazzling interstellar journey, is a tale of discovery, speculation, and the survival of mankind. And you can have this book today. Here's what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This includes free access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is updated monthly with new titles. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can get Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Well, this time on These Are Your Stories, we have a special treat. Normally, I read all the stories, but that's not going to be the case this time. Sylvia is still with us, and she is going to tell us a story that happened to her. Sylvia, are you ready with your story?
I sure am, Ron.
Okay, well, where does it take place? Let's start with that.
The most recent investigation I went on was at Malvern Manor in Malvern, Iowa. Now, this is my second visit here. I visited it when I went to Villisca last May. They're very close geographically, so I was able to hit both places at the same time. Malvern Manor was a hotel. It started off in the 1880s as the Cottage Hotel. Later on, in 1956, it stopped being a hotel and became Nishna Cottage Nursing Home. It gradually became a place where people would come to be cared for. It was a residential care facility, which meant it was a facility for people that needed long-term care. They had chronic problems. They suffered from various addictions, disorders, some form of mental illness. The cottage served them physically and mentally challenged for many years and really did a lot of good in the community.
So your kind of place.
Absolutely my kind of place, yes. It closed in 2005, so it hasn't been closed very long. Everything is left just as it was when the facility closed. It still retains almost an air of grandeur because it used to be a really swanky hotel. And it also has all the patient's belongings. So it's a really fascinating conjunction of grandeur and kind of squalidness. Really fascinating place. So my experience with Malvern Manor was this. I was there for an overnight investigation. One of the most stunning things that happened was that a couple investigators and I were in what they call the Shadow Man hallway. This is a hallway on the first floor where a shadow person is supposed to come out of room 2 and rush down the hallway at you really, really fast. That did not happen while we were there, but it has happened hundreds of times to various investigators over the years. It seems to be residual haunting. It's not intelligent at all, but man, that can wake you up real quick. So we were in the hallway. It was about 1:30 in the morning. And we were waiting for the shadow man to come out. He wasn't making an appearance. One of the other investigators had a pair of dowsing rods. Now, I think you and I have talked about dowsing rods before.
Oh, yeah, we have.
You hold the dowsing rods in your hands and ask questions, and the rods will cross for a yes answer, and they'll give you other direction, too. So an investigator was sitting on a chair. She had the dowsing rods. She was sitting across from a room that doesn't really have a number. They call it the dizzy room. And the reason they call it the dizzy room is because you can go in there and just be overcome with this wave of vertigo. Now, I had been in the dizzy room a couple hours before and had no effects whatsoever. Walked around in the dark. I didn't feel anything strange at all. Then I said, okay, nothing's going on, so I walked out. Now, the investigator was sitting in front of this room, and the rods suddenly pointed at the open door of the room and then swung, both of them, and pointed at me.
Oh, boy.
I said, okay. It sounds like a challenge, so sure, why not? I'll go in and see what happens. So I went into the room and stood there, and almost immediately, I did feel that dizziness. I did feel that vertigo. It wasn't a head thing. It was more like I was standing up in a moving train. The floor seemed to be waving and watery, like standing on waves, even though I wasn't moving. It was very, very, very odd. And it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. This is a first for me in my investigating career. I was standing there just getting used to this feeling of a funhouse floor underneath me. And all of a sudden, a wave of electricity just spun in my arms and legs. It was like I had grabbed a hold of a live electrical wire. And I took a moment to gather myself. I said, whoa, that was so trippy. Exactly the words I used. So I walked back out into the hallway, and the other investigators are like, are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. And then I thought to myself, well, why am I walking back out of that room into the hallway? I want to see what else is going to happen. So I went back into the room. And I stood there, and with my knees soft, so I wouldn't, lock my knees and fall over or anything. Mm-hmm. The floor continued to be wavy. And I realized I was recording my experiences. And I looked down at my phone, and my phone had shut itself off 12 seconds into this fantastic recording of this unbelievable experience. No. So I turned the phone back on, said a few cuss words, turned the phone back on and said, do it again. And it didn't happen again. That electric jolt never happened again. All I was left with was this gently moving floor underneath my feet. And that was enough. I experienced this, and
wow.
Even though I don't have recorded proof of it, my reaction to it, I know what I experienced. And that was enough. And it was such an incredible experience. It was not frightening at all. It was just intensely interesting.
Well, Sylvia, I got to ask you again. You enjoy doing this?
I love it. I love it. I actually spent a few hours sleeping in Susie's room. One of the patients there, she had the mental age of about a 9-year-old girl, and she enjoys coloring. So I had to move a bunch of coloring books and crayons off of her mattress so that I could lay down and go to sleep for a few hours.
That's incredible.
So, yeah. The building was very hot. There's no temperature control except for the lobby of the hotel. So it was just beastly hot up there. And that was fine because I could tell myself that all the sounds I was hearing out in the hallway were simply the result of the building settling. But that didn't really explain the footsteps that I heard out in the hallway.
Oh, boy.
Nor did it explain the woman's laughter.
Is this going to be one of your podcasts coming up?
Oh, yes.
Well, Sylvia, I want to thank you for being part of These Are Your Stories today. This wasn't planned, folks. She just said she had an incredible story for us and had to tell us. So, Sylvia, thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
And now let's get back to the rest of the stories. This story comes to us from Stacy Wood, who lives in the small Illinois town of Naperville. She sent her story in via the website and has titled it The White Ghost. I was about 11 years old when this happened. Growing up, my entire family lived in a small town about half an hour from Chicago. By small, I mean maybe 400 people or so. One of my cousins and her husband lived in a house at the edge of town. There was a fenced-in garden out back. Beyond that was a dirt road, then a wheat field, and then the local cemetery. One day I was in the garden picking strawberries, and I looked out across the field to the cemetery. I saw what looked like a large piece of white paper blowing around. The odd thing is that it stuck around just a few graves, and it went back and forth. Oh, and there was no wind, at least not enough to do that. I watched for a while, scared, but interested. It lasted so long that I finally went and told my cousin and sister. We looked out the back window, and it was still there. Back and forth it went, in and around the headstones. It made no sense. We closed the curtain and went about getting ready for dinner. That night, I slept on the sofa. I didn't want to be near those back windows, and I didn't say anything to my family about it. The problem is that I was right under the front living room window. I had nightmares. At one point, I woke up and looked out into the night. Looking back at me was a white figure. It had no face, but the rest of it was human-shaped. I swore, and then I screamed. I hid under the covers until my sister got there and asked me what happened. I told her what I saw. She spent some time with me, and I finally did go back to sleep. However, nightmares plagued me the rest of the night. I never stayed at my cousin's house again. A few years later, the small house was torn down, and my cousin moved to Chicago. One afternoon last summer, during the pandemic, I decided to go back to that cemetery. However, things had changed a lot. Of course, the house was gone, and new buildings were all around, but the cemetery was still there. After some looking, I figured out where that paper had been flying. It turned out that an entire family was buried there, all with the same death date. I never found out what happened to them. Stacy Wood, Naperville, Illinois. That is a strange story, to be sure. I would love to do some research on that one for you. Send me some more info and maybe we can do a follow-up story. I'm not sure why I feel this way, but I think that there's something there just waiting for us to discover it. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing your story. Our last story for this week is a short one from Izzy Hawks. Izzy didn't say where he lives now, but did title his story, I heard that too. Hello, Ron. I was profoundly struck by a story sent in by Dolly Benally from Taos. I once lived in New Mexico for a short time. While there, I worked on a ranch for a couple doing odd jobs. One night, there was a commotion in the chicken coop. The coyotes often tried to get them, so I wasn't too worried about it, but I did head out to put a stop to it. When I arrived, I found the coop gate completely ripped off its hinges. There were also several dead chickens scattered around. Then I heard this unearthly voice speak out from the coop. It sounded so strange. I was terrified and I didn't want to investigate. It turns out I didn't have to. Something busted out the wall and ran right by me on all fours. I didn't get a good look at it, but I can tell you this, it wasn't a coyote. Thank you for your show, Ron. I never miss it. Izzy Hawks. Well, thank you, Izzy, and thank you for your story. Izzy is referring to a tale we had in episode number 495 a few weeks ago. Dolly Benelli told of a creature that attacked one of her dogs and made some eerie deep sounds that sent chills down her spine. Crazy stuff, that one. Well, that's it for this time. If you have a story you want to share, like Izzy did, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com and click on the story submission banner. Leave your story, give it a title, and tell me where you're from. I will read it if I can.
As read by Amazing Stories, read by amazing people.
This time on As Read By, we have a short story request from Rosalind Carlisle. What makes this even better is that Rosalind herself is going to read it for us. The story is simply titled Experiment. I couldn't find any record of it other than it was written by Fredrick Brown. He often wrote stories for the 50s science fiction pulp magazines, and we have had many of his stories on the show before. This one is very short, so I decided to risk copyright infringement.
Experiment by Frederick Brown, read by Rosalind Carlisle. The first time machine, gentlemen, Professor Johnson proudly informed his two colleagues. True, it is a small-scale experimental model. It will operate only on objects weighing less than 3 pounds, 5 ounces, and for distances into the past and future of 12 minutes or less, but it works. The small-scale model looked like a small scale, a postage scale, except for 2 dials in the part under the platform. Professor Johnson held up a small metal cube. Our experimental object, he said, is a brass cube weighing 1 pound, 2.3 ounces. First, I shall send it 5 minutes into the future. He leaned forward and set one of the dials on the time machine. Look at your watches, he said. They looked at their watches. Professor Johnson placed the cube gently on the machine's platform. It vanished. 5 minutes later, to the second, it reappeared. Professor Johnson picked it up. Now, 5 minutes into the past. He set the other dial. Holding the cube in his hand, he looked at his watch. It is 6 minutes before 3 o'clock. I shall now activate the mechanism by placing the cube on the platform at exactly 3 o'clock. Therefore, the cube should at 5 minutes before 3 vanish from my hand and appear on the platform 5 minutes before I place it there. How can you place it there then? Asked one of his colleagues. It will, as my hand approaches, vanish from the platform and appear in my hand to be placed there. 3 o'clock. Notice, please. The cube vanished from his hand. It appeared on the platform of the time machine. See? 5 minutes before I place it there, it is there. His other colleague frowned at the cube. But, he said, what if now that it has already appeared 5 minutes before you place it there, you should change your mind about doing so and not place it there at 3 o'clock? Wouldn't there be a paradox of some sort involved? An interesting idea, Professor Johnson said. I had not thought of it, and it will be interesting to try. Very well, I shall not... There was no paradox at all. The cube remained, but the entire rest of the universe, professors and all, vanished.
Very cute story, and like I said, very short. I want to thank Rosalind for reading it to us. My guess is that the story comes from the late 50s or early 60s. I suggest that time frame because that's when its author, Fredrick Brown, was most active. While the idea of changing one's mind after the fact would have an impact on the time stream, well, that's something that makes my head spin, and I'll leave it to you to understand the story. Are you ready for another story? This one is being brought to us by Gladys Goodies. Good treats for your dog to eat. They use all natural products with no sugar, preservatives, salts, or harmful ingredients. So check out their online store at GladysGoodies.com. That is GladysGoodies.com. And don't forget to use our very own promo code, RONS, to get a 20% discount on all of your purchases. That is RONS. Thank you, Gladys. Our featured story is another mind-bending one set in 1954 and then moves to 2004. It has a unique perspective that I found completely fascinating, and I think you will too. I've never read anything quite like it, and I do believe that quantum theorists just might take issue with this one, but in a good way. It is titled Hall of Mirrors and was written by the same author as our previous story today, Fredrick Brown. It first appeared in the pages of Galaxy Science Fiction magazine in December of 1953. It is read for us by Greg Marguerite.
It is a tough decision to make, whether to give up your life so you can live it over again. For an instant you think it is temporary blindness, this sudden dark that comes in the middle of a bright afternoon. It must be blindness, you think. Could the sun that was tanning you have gone out instantaneously, leaving you in utter blackness? The nerves of your body tell you that you are standing, whereas only a second ago you were sitting comfortably, almost reclining in a canvas chair in the patio of a friend's house in Beverly Hills, talking to Barbara, your fiancée, looking at Barbara. Barbara in a swimsuit, her skin golden tan in the brilliant sunshine. Beautiful. You wore swimming trunks. Now you do not feel them on you. The slightest pressure of the elastic waistband is no longer there against your waist. You touch your hands to your hips. You are naked and standing. Whatever has happened to you is more than a change to sudden darkness or to sudden blindness. You raise your hands groping before you. They touch a plain, smooth surface, a wall. You spread them apart, and each hand reaches a corner. You pivot slowly. A second wall, then a third, then a door. You are in a closet about 4 feet square. Your hand finds the knob of the door. It turns and you push the door open. There is light now. The door has opened to a lighted room, a room that you have never seen before. It is not large, but it is pleasantly furnished, although the furniture is of a style that is strange to you. Modesty makes you open the door cautiously the rest of the way, but the room is empty of people. You step into the room, turning to look behind you into the closet, which is now illuminated by light from the room. The closet is and is not a closet. It is the size and shape of one, but it contains nothing. Not a single hook, no rod for hanging clothes, no shelf. It is an empty, blank-walled 4-by-4-foot space. You close the door to it and stand looking around the room. It is about 12 by 16 feet. There is one door, but it is closed. There are no windows. 5 pieces of furniture. 4 of them you recognize more or less. One looks like a very functional desk. One is obviously a chair, a comfortable-looking one. There is a table, although its top is on several levels instead of only one. Another is a bed or couch. Something shimmering is lying across it, and you walk over and pick the shimmering something up and examine it. It is a garment. You are naked, so you put it on. Slippers are part way under the bed or couch, and you slide your feet into them. They fit, and they feel warm and comfortable as nothing you have ever worn on your feet has felt. Like lamb's wool, but softer. You are dressed now. You look at the door, the only door in the room except that of the closet. Closet? From which you entered it. You walk to the door, and before you try the knob, you see the small typewritten sign pasted just above it that reads, "This door has a time lock set to open in 1 hour. For reasons you will soon understand, it is better that you do not leave this room before then. There is a letter for you on the desk. Please read it." It is not signed. You look at the desk and see that there is an envelope lying on it. You do not yet go to take that envelope from the desk and read the letter that must be in it. Why not? Because you are frightened. You see other things about the room. The lighting has no source that you can discover. It comes from nowhere. It is not indirect lighting. The ceiling and the walls are not reflecting it at all. They didn't have lighting like that back where you came from. What did you mean by back where you came from? You close your eyes. You tell yourself, "I am Norman Hastings. I am an associate professor of mathematics at the University of Southern California. I am 25 years old, and this is the year 1954. You open your eyes and look again. They didn't use that style of furniture in Los Angeles or anywhere else that you know of in 1954. That thing over in the corner, you can't even guess what it is. So might your grandfather at your age, having looked at a television set. You look down at yourself, at the shimmering garment that you found waiting for you. With thumb and forefinger you feel its texture. It's like nothing you've ever touched before. I am Norman Hastings. This is 1954. Suddenly you must know, and at once. You go to the desk and pick up the envelope that lies upon it. Your name is typed on the outside, Norman Hastings. Your hands shake a little as you open it. Do you blame them? There are several pages typewritten. "Dear Norman," it starts. You turn quickly to the end to look for the signature. It is unsigned. You turn back and start reading. "Do not be afraid. There is nothing to fear, but much to explain. Much that you must understand before the time lock opens that door. Much you must accept and obey." You have already guessed that you are in the future, in what to you seems to be the future. The clothes and room must have told you that. I planned it that way so the shock would not be too sudden, so you would realize it over the course of several minutes rather than read it here, and quite probably disbelieve what you read. The closet from which you have just stepped is, as you have by now realized, a time machine. From it you stepped into the world of 2004. The date is April 7th, just 50 years from the time you last remember. You cannot return. I did this to you, and you may hate me for it. I do not know. That is up to you to decide. But it does not matter. What does matter, and not to you alone, is another decision which you must make. I am incapable of making it. Who is writing this to you? I would rather not tell you just yet. By the time you have finished reading this, even though it is not signed, for I knew you would look first for a signature, I will not need to tell you who I am. You will know. I am 75 years of age. I have, in this year 2004, been studying time for 30 of those years. I have completed the first time machine ever built, and thus far its construction, even the fact that it has been constructed, is my own secret. You have just participated in the first major experiment. It will be your responsibility to decide whether there shall ever be any more experiments with it, whether it should be given to the world, or whether it should be destroyed and never used again. End of first page. You look up for a moment, hesitating to turn the next page. Already you suspect what is coming. You turn the page. I constructed the first time machine a week ago. My calculations had told me that it would work, but not how it would work. I had expected it to send an object back in time. It works backwards in time only, not forward. Physically unchanged and intact. My first experiment showed me my error. I placed a cube of metal in the machine. It was a miniature of the one you just walked out of, and set the machine to go backward 10 years. I flicked the switch and opened the door, expecting to find the cube vanished. Instead, I found it had crumbled to powder. I put in another cube and sent it 2 years back. The second cube came back unchanged, except that it was newer, shinier. That gave me the answer. I had been expecting the cubes to go back in time, and they had done so, but not in the sense I had expected them to. Those metal cubes had been fabricated about 3 years previously. I had sent the first one back years before it had existed in its fabricated form. 10 years ago it had been ore. The machine returned it to that state. Do you see how our previous theories of time travel have been wrong? We expected to be able to step into a time machine in, say, 2004, set it for 50 years back, and then step out in the year 1954. But it does not work that way. The machine does not move in time. Only whatever is within the machine is affected, and then just with relation to itself and not to the rest of the universe. I confirmed this with guinea pigs by sending one 6 weeks old 5 weeks back, and it came out a baby. I need not outline all of my experiments here. You will find a record of them in the desk, and you can study it later. Do you understand now what has happened to you, Norman? You begin to understand, and you begin to sweat. The I who wrote that letter you are now reading is you yourself at the age of 75 in this year of 2004. You are that 75-year-old man with your body returned to what it had been 50 years ago, with all the memories of 50 years of living wiped out. You invented the time machine. And before you used it on yourself, you made these arrangements to help orient yourself. You wrote yourself the letter which you are now reading. But if those 50 years are, to you, gone, what of all your friends, those you loved? What of your parents? What of the girl you were going to marry? You read on. Yes, you will want to know what has happened. Mom died in 1963, Dad in 1968. You married Barbara in 1956. I'm sorry to tell you that she died only 3 years later in a plane crash. You have one son. He is still living. His name is Walter. He is now 46 years old and is an accountant in Kansas City. Tears come into your eyes, and for a moment you can no longer read. Barbara dead. Dead for 45 years. And only minutes ago, in subjective time, you were sitting next to her, sitting in the bright sun in a Beverly Hills patio. You force yourself to read again. But back to the discovery. You begin to see some of its implications. You will need time to think to see all of them. It does not permit time travel as we have thought of time travel, but it gives us immortality of a sort. Immortality of the kind I have temporarily given us. Is it good? Is it worthwhile to lose the memory of 50 years of one's life in order to return one's body to its relative youth? The only way I can find out is to try. As soon as I have finished writing this and made my other preparations, you will know the answer. But before you decide, remember that there is another problem, more important than the psychological one. I mean overpopulation. If our discovery is given to the world, if all who are old or dying can make themselves young again, the population will almost double every generation. Nor would the world, not even our own relatively enlightened country, be willing to accept compulsory birth control as a solution. Give this to the world as the world is today in 2004, and within a generation there will be famine, suffering, war, perhaps a complete collapse of civilization. Yes, we have reached other planets, but they are not suitable for colonizing. The stars may be our answer, but we are a long way from reaching them. When we do someday, the billions of habitable planets that must be out there will be our answer, our living room. But until then, what is the answer? Destroy the machine? But think of the countless lives it can save, the suffering it can prevent. Think of what it would mean to a man dying of cancer. Think. You finish the letter and put it down. You think of Barbara dead for 45 years, and of the fact that you were married to her for 3 years, and that those years are lost to you. 50 years lost. You damn the old man of 75 who you became and who has done this to you, who has given you this decision to make. Bitterly you know what the decision must be. You think that he knew, too, and realize that he could safely leave it in your hands. Damn him. He should have known. Too valuable to destroy, too dangerous to give? The other answer is painfully obvious. You must be custodian of this discovery and keep it secret until it is safe to give, until mankind has expanded to the stars and has new worlds to populate, or until, even without that, he has reached a state of civilization where he can avoid overpopulation by rationing births to the number of accidental or voluntary deaths. If neither of those things has happened in another 50 years, and are they likely too soon? Then you at 75 will be writing another letter like this one. You will be undergoing another experience similar to the one you're going through now, and making the same decision, of course. Why not? You'll be the same person again, time and again, to preserve this secret until man is ready for it. How often will you again sit at a desk like this one, thinking the thoughts you are thinking now, feeling the grief you now feel? There is a click at the door, and you know that the time lock has opened, that you are now free to leave this room, free to start a new life for yourself in place of the one you have already lived and lost. But you are in no hurry now to walk directly through that door. You sit there, staring straight ahead of you blindly, seeing in your mind's eye the vista of a set of facing mirrors like those in an old-fashioned barber shop, reflecting the same thing over and over again, diminishing into far distance.
So what would you do? Would you open the door and start another life? Would you share your time machine with the world? Would it create chaos and destroy the world? Who can say? But we can theorize and perhaps decide to end the Hall of Mirrors right then and now. Something to think about. Our author for both our science fiction stories today was Fredrick Brown. He was a science fiction, fantasy, and mystery writer. He is known for his use of humor and his mastery of the short form, stories of 1 to 3 pages, often with ingenious plot devices and surprise endings. According to his wife, Brown hated to write. He did everything he could to avoid it. He'd play his flute, challenge a friend to a game of chess, or tease Ming Ta, his Siamese cat. If Brown had trouble working out a certain story, he would hop on a long bus trip and just sit and think about the plot for days on end. When Brown finally returned home and set himself in front of his typewriter, he produced some of the best stories in the golden age of science fiction. How about that? Well, that truly was episode number 499, and next up is 500. How about that? I can't even believe that we have done that many shows. I want to thank all of you for listening to them. I really do appreciate you. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.